We are officially a go on today's very exciting STEM Wednesday, and for any of you students out there, I am so glad that you are able to join us this week for a super fun session all about designing your own holiday tree or just pine tree in Tinkercad Codeblocks. So for everyone who hasn't already, I invite you to go ahead to www.tinkercad.com. I'm putting that link in the chat and get signed into your account or set up one if you don't already have an account, because this will be designed for you to follow along with me. Now, any students out there, make sure that you have your class code from your teacher. That way you can get signed in right away. If I do have any teachers here who are not busy helping all of their students get signed up and ready to go, I'd love to hear what grades we have in attendance. That way I can optimize this for the students who are here live. But just in case, I know a lot of you are probably busy getting everyone signed up. I won't wait for the chat. I'll just wait to see if anything comes in there. So today's session is brought to you by Boxlight, which is a comprehensive ecosystem for education. This is our STEM division, but we have loads and loads of things that Boxlight does, from flat panels to audio solutions, 3D printers, and more. And before I jump too far into designing, which I'll start in a minute here, I want to make sure that all of our teachers out there, all of our educators, know that next week is our 50th episode of STEM Wednesdays, which is super exciting. And because of that, we're doing a big celebration. We're going to have a whole panel of our favorite fellas here. It's going to be Evan, Braden, and Jonathan, all sharing holiday ideas, and there will be a few giveaways as well. So make sure that you are there live, because you do have to be present to win. All right, now let's get started. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to sign in to Tinkercad and is sitting in your account ready to get started. If anyone needs another minute, or if anyone has any questions throughout, please hop into the chat. I have that open on my other window here. So I will be showing you what to do on the screen that you can see, but I will be keeping an eye on the chat in case anyone needs me to show something again or has any questions. So with no further ado, you should be in Tinkercad, which probably looks something like this. You may by default already be in your sort of 3D design environment, but today we're going to actually be using the Codeblocks environment. If your screen doesn't look like this, you want to make sure you're in the designs section here on the left that has the 4 little squares. So once you're in your designs and you've selected Codeblocks, you're going to have the option on the right-hand side up at the top to click on the big blue button that says Create. And again, we're going to scroll all the way down and select Codeblocks. That's the bottom one. You notice when I mouse over these, they come up in different colors. So we're going to select the purple one at the bottom of the list that says Codeblocks. Now, I would love to hear if anyone has any coding experience, either using Tinkercad Codeblocks or other sort of block-based coding platforms, or if we're brand newbies here, if we have never done any sort of design or creation using Codeblocks, because doing coding like this can be a little intimidating, but it's really powerful once you get started. So again, just to show that, because I mentioned I would show things multiple times, from your home page here in Tinkercad, you're going to click Create and then scroll to the purple block at the bottom that says Codeblocks and click on that. That'll open a brand new blank code window for you to work in. Now, what we are going to be designing today is this, a little pine tree made out of Tinkercad Codeblocks. And I'm going to hold this up here and see if my window doesn't completely blur it out. So I chose a pine tree for this example because something Tinkercad Codeblocks is really good at is things with repeated shapes. Now, if you think about a pine tree in general, it's roughly a cone for the top and a cylinder for the bottom, for the trunk. So we're going to start by creating the trunk, and we're going to look for the cylinder over here in our shapes menu. So all I need to do is click on it and drag it over here into the big gray area on my screen. When I do that, it will now have a add command, and it will have a cylinder, and it will be orange. And if I click on this little arrow to the right-hand side here, I can learn some more information about it. I can set up a whole bunch of different settings, but for now, I'm going to hide all of that and just click play to see what it does. So the play button, so that we can keep testing and seeing how our code is running, is over here on the right-hand side, and it just is your classic black triangle sort of a play button. And when I click on it, I now have a cylinder. So I can see what my creation is looking like over here, and it's very simple right now. But because I like to look at things that are in the right colors for what I'm designing, I'm going to click on this orange circle here and tell it that I want my tree trunk to be brown instead of orange. And now when I click that play button again, it will show me that my code has changed, and now I have created a simple cylinder, just left all of its settings just like it was, but except I changed the color to brown. If anyone is near their keyboard and can pull up me in the chat, I would love to get a "we are with you," a thumbs up, a yes, keep going, anything like that, just to make sure that everyone is here with me before I move on to the next step. Thank you, Ellen. Okay, so far, thank you. Here, here. Awesome. Okay, glad to hear it. So now that we have our trunk, we need to start working on our main cone shape of our pine tree. So if you scroll through these basic shapes that are available here in the menu, you can find a cone. So the cone is the purple shape here, about fifth one down. And I'm going to just bring it again and drag it into the open space. But I don't want to just stick it anywhere. This time I want to attach it to the bottom of the other command. So code kind of works like a river or a waterfall. It starts at the top and it flows down. So it's going to do your code in order that it sits on your screen from the top to the bottom. So now I'm telling it first, add a trunk. Second, add a cone. And this cone's going to be my pine tree, so I'm going to make it green using that same colored circle drop down. And let's just see what we're working with here. Let's see if it ends up in a place that we like it, or if we're going to need to make adjustments. Again, to test that, I'm just going to click the play icon, and well, it played. But it looks like my cone is sitting directly inside my tree trunk. So it's not going to work just straight off the bat. Instead, we're going to have to make a few adjustments to this new shape to then implement it or create it the way we want it to look. So to make those adjustments, that's when we're going to use this arrow on the right side here. I'm just going to zoom in so that's a little easier for you to see. So this is the arrow we're looking at, and when I click on it, now I have a bunch of different settings I can control. So radius, as a math term, that refers to when you're looking at a circle, the radius is half of the way across. The diameter is the full width, so a radius is half of that distance. And if I compare to the radius of my cylinder, I notice that the bottom radius of my cone is the same radius as my cylinder. That's why I can't see it, because it's hiding immediately inside it. Now it also tells me that the top radius of my cone is 0. Well, that makes sense because at the very top of my cone, it's just a point. There is no width there. So what I want to do is make sure that my bottom radius here, which is that middle button, is a little bit larger. I'm going to set it to 20 to make it twice as wide as the tree trunk. And I'm going to click play again and see what that does for me. All right, now I have sort of a reverse tree that has a trunk on the bottom, or a trunk on the top, and the tree on the bottom. So as you can see, coding is all about troubleshooting. You are making a change, seeing what it does, and testing every step of the way. Now, can anyone tell me what they think we should do now that I have a large enough cone in one direction, but not necessarily perfect when it comes to where it's located? What do you think we need to do to this new cylinder or this new cone that we've created? Any guesses? Move it. Yes, we do need to move it. And someone else said adjust the height. You can definitely adjust the height as well. So H here stands for height. So I can make it taller. I can say change that from 20 to 30. Now these units that we're working in are millimeters. And if you're not sure how big that is, you can take a ruler. Let me actually grab a ruler that's a little darker. Here we go. You can take a ruler and look at it to see what a millimeter is. So 10 millimeters is our radius. That's from about the same width as my finger here. So our cylinder on the bottom goes 20 centimeters across because it's that. So that tells me how far wide it is. So at any point, you can be referring to your ruler to see how big this would be when put in the real world. Otherwise, I'm just going to click play, see what adjusting the height did. All right, now it's sticking up a little bit taller, but it's still not in the right spot. So whoever suggested move, you are right on track. We also need to move it up so that it's high and is off the ground. This main menu we've been living in here is where you find all of your shapes. But if we go into the modify menu, that's how we adjust the shapes we already have. So I'm going to look at these modify things, and I see the very first one other than select all says move. So I'm going to grab this move command and just, again, drag it right to the bottom of my code. Very easy to click and drag and slide it over. Now, when you're working in 3 dimensions, you notice we have the option here of X, Y, and Z. So if I'm looking at a piece of paper in front of me, X is this direction, Y is sort of towards the camera, and then Z is up towards the ceiling. So with this tree, we need to move the cone up towards the ceiling. So that's going to be our Z axis. And so I'm just going to type in 20 and see where that puts it. And again, I'm going to click play and see now it has created a very fun, simple pine tree shape here that has a cone and a trunk. And you are welcome to adjust these dimensions however you want. Maybe the shape of this cone or this tree trunk isn't exactly what you had pictured, so go ahead and adjust. You can control these dimensions however you'd like to create your custom tree. Now, I don't know how many of you noticed, but my little sample pine tree here is not just made up of a single cone. I actually went in and created copies of the cone to create a more interesting shape. There's a really cool feature in code blocks or coding like this called repeating. And so what I can do is take some of the work I've already done and just repeat it. So I've already built a cone and I've already colored it the way I want. So now let's just repeat this action. So I'm going to grab a repeat command, and this is under my control options here. Those are in orange. And when I bring this in, there's nothing inside the repeat. It doesn't know what it's repeating yet. And it just tells it to repeat once, but I want a bunch of layers to my tree. So I'm going to change that to repeating 5 different times. Now, what do we want it to do? We want it to make a copy of our cone, and we want it to probably move that cone up to get it out of the way. We may also want to make it slightly smaller because if you look at this, the cones that I have near the top are a lot smaller than the ones near the bottom. So I'm trying to think through all the different things I might want to adjust as I go about creating a repeating function or command here within Tinkercad. So what I need to do first is create a copy. Now, copy is actually one of the other options under modify. So it's a purple command, and I'm going to bring that inside my repeat. You can see that I'm setting it between these two orange lines and that the orange area is actually growing to allow it to fit. The question is, what am I copying though? So when I click on this, wait a second, I can copy a specific color. There's my presets. Here it is. I want to copy anything in that shade of green. So if yours came in a custom, make sure you change it to the same shade of green. It's important that you choose the color that matches the item you want to copy. That's how it can tell them apart. So if I do this right now, it's just going to create a copy in exactly the same place because I'm not telling it to do anything with the copies yet. So the next thing I want to do is also have it move my copy. So I'm using a move command again. I'm just going to move it a little bit up in the z-axis again. We'll try 10 and just see what this gives us. Oh, all right. I'm getting a very tall pine tree now. And that was so easy, right? All we had to do was create the one cone, and now it's doing a whole bunch of hard work for us just by using this repeat command. Oh, that was fun. I'm glad. Yeah, I love this. I love having that happen. It's such a fun little trick. Now, I want to do that other thing I talked about, which was making the top of the pine tree a little bit smaller so it doesn't just look like a big, tall, straight line like this. So the last adjustment I'm going to make is go into scale and put that right in the middle. And 1 is like 100%. That's full size. So we're going to need to use decimal points here to make it smaller. And a decimal point is just the period on your keyboard. So type the period. And then for your decimal value, I recommend selecting anywhere from 0.7 to 0.9. I'll do 0.8. But again, you can test this out and see what you get every time you do it. So now I'm creating a pine tree that gets a little bit smaller as it goes. Now, again, you're going to find that sometimes it looks a little silly and you might need to adjust things. But the best part about doing this with Codeblocks is I can come in here and change something way back on my first cone and click play, and everything else is going to adjust based on it. So I can just keep finessing and keep playing until I create exactly what I want to create. Maybe I'm moving it too high up. Maybe I'm not scaling it enough. Maybe I'm scaling it too much. Just keep messing with it. Keep playing around until you get exactly what you're looking for. And there's no wrong answers here. This is just fun. One thing I also want to point out is over here, you can actually see which command it is doing at each time as it matches over here. So if you're curious what is causing things to happen in your code, you can see them get highlighted in black. So I hope that has worked well for everyone. Once you've created a design that you like, you can click on this export button here and save it to your computer as an STL file, which for anyone who has a 3D printer, you would then be able to 3D print this creation. I do recommend that you maybe print your pine trees upside down and just add a whole bunch of supports down here at the bottom, like I did when I was printing this earlier today. That way it helps hold itself up as it prints. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. This is just one of the things we offer here at MimioSTEM. I am Hannah Daniels. I'm going to drop my email in the chat here for you in case you have any follow-up questions. Feel free to hit me up with them. Or if you'd just like to learn more about any of our other MimioSTEM products, the 3D printers, the sensors, the curriculum, all sorts of fun stuff. And then looking forward to seeing you all next week for our 50th episode celebration. I'll stick on for another minute or two for anyone who has questions about the tree. Otherwise, these guys will see you next week, same place, same time. Thanks for joining.